Imagine paying for tonight's luxury dinner by taking out a second mortgage that, doesn't even kick in for another 10 years.
Right. It is a wild concept.
But that is essentially the financial gamble the Phoenix Suns just took. I mean, it is Sunday. We are recording this just minutes after the blockbuster Suns-Hornets trade crossed the wire.
Literally minutes ago.
Yeah, and with 2 days ahead of free agency officially kicking off, the landscape of the entire league just shifted.
Oh, absolutely. It changes everything.
So the mission for today's deep dive is to help you, the casual fan, peer behind the curtain. We are going to decode the invisible financial chess match driving your favorite team's decisions.
Yeah, and we really need to finally explain the mechanics behind the most terrifying words in the new NBA rules, which is, the aprons.
Right. And to map this all out, we are leaning heavily into a brilliant new framework and article published by Bobby Marks over at ESPN.
He is the absolute best for this. As a premier cap expert and a former front office executive for the Nets, he really understands not just the rules, but the psychological pressure cookers these general managers are operating inside right now.
Totally. So before we zoom out to look at the rest of the league's free agency picture, we have to dissect this massive domino that literally just fell today.
The Charlotte-Phoenix deal.
Exactly. According to Shams, Charlotte is trading starting forward Miles Bridges to Phoenix. And in return, the Suns are giving up Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and a massive 2033 unprotected first-round pick.
Which is just a staggering asset to move.
I mean, when I read 2033 unprotected, my brain immediately goes to the fact that the kid who will eventually be drafted with that pick might be finishing up middle school right now.
Yeah, he's probably, learning algebra today.
Right. So what is the basketball logic behind leveraging a decade of your future for a guy who's on an expiring contract?
Well, the logic is entirely dictated by the championship window of their current core. Phoenix they were desperate for a physical, starting caliber power forward.
And Bridges definitely provides that.
Exactly. He averaged over 17 points a game last year. He fits the schematic need perfectly, but, the real mechanism at play here is the extension rule.
Because Bridges is on that expiring $22.8 million deal, right?
Yeah. And Phoenix isn't trading an unprotected pick to just rent him for a few months. They are going to extend him. Under the current collective bargaining agreement, the absolute maximum they can offer him right now is a 3-year, $86 million extension.
Which feels incredibly specific. How does the league even arrive at that $86 million ceiling?
It's all just a mathematical formula baked into the rules. That max extension represents a 20% discount off his current $22.8 million salary, but then it factors in 5% annual raises over the course of the 3 new years.
Oh, I see.
And for Phoenix owner Matt Ishbia, this is simply the cost of doing business. The reporting makes it incredibly clear Ishbia is operating strictly in a 2026 window.
He does not care about 2033.
Not at all. He is not interested in what the roster looks like for a Michigan State reunion a decade from now. It is a win-now mandate, no matter the future cost.
Man, okay, let's flip the board and look at Charlotte's side of this, because they just executed a breathtaking pivot. Over the last 72 hours, they haven't just traded Miles Bridges. According to the breakdown, they traded LaMelo Ball, too.
Yeah, their franchise point guard. They have essentially stripped the whole roster down to the studs.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
And in return, they have assembled this package of Naz Reid, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, a massive $41 million trade exception from the LaMelo deal, and multiple unprotected first-rounders.
Including that 2033 pick from Minnesota and now the 2033 pick from Phoenix.
Right. So what is the strategy there?
It is the ultimate pivot toward flexibility.
Right.
Front offices dread one thing above all else, which is being a middle-of-the-pack team with no cap space and no draft capital.
Basketball purgatory.
Exactly. Charlotte look at their roster and realize that even if everything went right, they were not a championship contender. So by liquidating their most expensive assets now, they avoid being financially paralyzed.
So they have an open canvas now.
Totally. They control future drafts, and they hold that $41 million trade exception, which acts as a massive financial sponge. They can use it to absorb bad contracts from other teams in exchange for even more draft picks down the line.
That makes sense. Now, I understand the standard salary cap. You have a budget, you try to stay under it.
Yeah.
But the reporting around this trade specifically notes that this single transaction triggers the aprons.
Yes, the dreaded aprons.
Charlotte is now hard capped at the first apron, and Phoenix is hard capped at the second apron. I really want to understand the actual mechanics here. The rule states Phoenix triggered the second apron because they aggregated
Right.
contracts.
They combined Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal.
Yeah, they combined them to match Bridges' salary while taking less money back in the deal. Why does the league throw the book at a team just for combining two cheaper salaries?
Well, it comes down to the fundamental intent of the new CBA. The league watched teams with incredibly deep pockets, like Golden State or the Clippers, treat the traditional salary cap as a mere suggestion.
Well, it didn't even exist.
Right. Previously, if you were willing to pay the luxury tax, you could just keep piling up mid-tier contracts, bundle them together, and trade them for a superstar.
Ah, so the league wanted to stop that infinite hoarding of talent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they created the aprons as structural walls. By making aggregating contracts a trigger for this second apron, the league is essentially saying, you can keep your expensive stars, but you can no longer use your bench players as a piggy bank to buy another one.
Okay, so let me see if I have this right. If the base salary cap is the speed limit, are the aprons basically the spike strips the league throws on the road if you just keep accelerating?
That is a perfect way to visualize it. You hit those spike strips and you lose your tools.
Like what specifically?
Well, hitting the second apron strips away your $6.1 million tax mid-level exception. And like we just talked about, it strips your ability to aggregate contracts and trades. You lose the functional tools required to build a roster.
Wow, your margin for error shrinks to zero.
Now, contrast that with Charlotte. The Hornets triggered the first apron hard cap simply because they used more than 100% of a traded player exception.
But do they even care?
Not at all. Here is the cap shad. Charlotte has over $50 million in cap room below it. They are so far under the limit that the first apron restriction is completely meaningless to them. It won't impact a single phone call they make this week.
Okay, so Phoenix just willingly drove over the spike strips to maximize today. But with free agency just 2 days away, how many other teams are actually willing to put on that financial straitjacket?
Very few, honestly.
Well, Bobby Marks categorized all 30 NBA teams into a 7-tier system based entirely on their financial reality, and I think it really exposes the hidden strategies of free agency. Let's start at the top. Tier 1, true cap space teams.
Right, the teams with actual room to spend.
Yeah, and right now, Marks points out this is an exclusive club with just Brooklyn and Chicago. They have fluid space, like somewhere in the $20 to $30 million range.
But there's a massive catch there.
Right. They legally must spend 90% of the salary cap by opening day. Why is the league forcing them to spend money?
It is entirely about revenue sharing and competitive integrity. Every year, the teams that pay into the luxury tax distribute that penalty money to the teams that stay under the tax.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the Players Association and the league didn't want cheap owners fielding uncompetitive, bare-bones rosters just to collect those massive revenue-sharing checks. So they put in the 90% salary floor.
So if a team like Chicago doesn't hit that floor, what happens?
If they fail to hit it, they forfeit their share of the luxury tax distributions. That is millions of dollars directly out of the owner's pocket.
Ouch. And the reward for actually using that cap space properly is what they call the room mid-level exception, right? Which is about $9.4 million.
Yeah, exactly. Once Brooklyn uses their space, they get that extra $9.4 million slot to sign another player. But Marks pointed out that Brooklyn's cap space is extremely fluid because of a recent Julius Randle trade.
Right, they have to decide their order of operations.
Yep. Do they operate over the cap using a traded player exception first, or operate as a pure cap space team immediately? The sequence of filing paperwork in the NBA literally dictates your spending power.
It's just administrative strategy.
Completely. If they operate over the cap first to absorb a player using an exception, and then clear the books to use cap space, they effectively squeeze an extra player onto the roster.
Wow. Okay, let's move to Tier 2, which Marks calls cap space, but at a cost. This includes the Lakers, Clippers, Pistons, and Memphis. I need some clarity here. Why does cap space have a cost?
It is a great question.
If the Lakers have, say, $50 million of space on the ledger, why can't they just go spend it?
Because the space isn't actually empty, it is occupied by invisible placeholders called cap holds. The league doesn't let you keep the rights to your own free agents while simultaneously using all your cap space to sign new ones.
Oh, I see.
So let's look at the Lakers. To functionally access that $50 million in pure cap space, they would have to officially renounce the cap holds for LeBron James and Austin Reeves.
Wait, really? They would literally have to let their foundation walk out the door for nothing just to get the shiny new cap space.
Exactly. The cost of cap space in Tier 2 is gutting your own roster. That is why these teams often choose a completely different path.
Which is what?
If the Lakers simply retain LeBron and Reeves, they operate as an over-the-cap team. While they lose the pure cap space, operating over the cap grants them access to the $15 million non-tax mid-level exception.
Which is a huge deal.
It is.
Yeah.
In the modern NBA, $15 million is the going rate for a premium rotation player or a solid fifth starter.
Okay, that perfectly transitions us into Tiers 3 and 4. Tier 3 is the $15 million club, and Tier 4 is watching their own.
Right.
The $15 million club includes teams like Charlotte and Milwaukee, who have full access to that non-tax exception. But Tier 4 is where the front office anxiety really lives. These are teams managing capping against their own returning players.
It is the ultimate game of leverage. Look at the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. Their front office is basically forced to operate as if they are severely restricted. Why? Because James Harden holds a $41 million player option.
$41 million, that's massive.
Right, and Cleveland cannot make a single major move until Harden makes his decision. If he opts in, their cap sheet is completely jammed.
Even if they expect him to negotiate it down later.
Exactly. Their hands are legally tied in the interim. And Golden State is trapped in the exact same holding pattern, waiting on Kristaps Porzingis.
Because if Porzingis comes back for, say, $10 million, the Warriors suddenly cross the threshold and lose access to their full $15 million exception, right?
Yep. It highlights how every single dollar an internal free agent takes directly cannibalizes the tools available to build around them.
Which brings us to the teams already hearing the sirens. Tiers 5, 6, and 7 represent the squeezed middle of the league all the way up to the brutal second apron.
The danger zone.
In Tier 5, you have Indiana and New Orleans hovering right near the tax line. But Tier 6, the first apron teams, is where the real fear sets in. The Miami Heat are sort of the poster child for this tier right now.
The Heat are a fascinating case study in unintended consequences. Because they used more than 100% of a traded player exception in that massive deal for Giannis, they triggered a hard cap at the first apron.
Meaning no matter what catastrophic injury happens or what blockbuster trade materializes at the deadline, Miami legally cannot spend a single dollar over that line.
The hard cap is an absolute barrier. It forces front offices into terrifying decisions. You see the New York Knicks actively maneuvering right now just to avoid that fate.
Right, the Knicks are trying to stay under the second apron so they can utilize a smaller exception to sign someone like Landry Shamet for around $8 million.
And if they miscalculate the math by even a few $100,000, they trigger the hard cap restrictions.
The margins are just insanely thin. And finally, we reach the bottom of the financial ocean, Tier 7, the second apron. Denver and OKC are here.
Yeah.
And the expert breakdown notes that OKC shaved a ton of money off their books, but they still remain a second apron team.
Yeah, the Thunder executed one of the most brilliant financial off-seasons in recent memory, and they still got caught.
What do they do?
They actively shaved tens of millions of dollars off their future ledger. They declined team options on Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe specifically to restructure them onto cheaper long-term deals.
Oh, that's smart.
And they brought in Isaiah Hartenstein on a heavily front-loaded descending contract. It brings his future cap hit way down.
Right. Bobby Marks noted that Hartenstein's declining deal acts as a massive pressure release valve for when they eventually have to afford Chet Holmgren's extension.
It was masterful cap management. And yet, despite doing everything right, the sheer aggregate cost of their core still leaves the Thunder operating as a second apron team.
Wow.
It perfectly illustrates the reality of the new CBA. You can be the smartest front office in the room, but if you want to keep a championship-caliber core together, you cannot escape the second apron.
When you look at this entire landscape, I mean, from Phoenix sacrificing a 2033 draft pick just to secure a power forward, to Charlotte liquidating their franchise point guard just to escape basketball purgatory, it is clear the financial chess match is just as wild as the game on the hardwood.
Oh, without a doubt.
Teams are actively deciding whether retaining their own stars is worth having their financial bank accounts frozen by the league.
The evaluation of talent has fundamentally changed. A general manager is no longer just looking at a player's shooting percentage. They're looking at the specific cap exceptions that player's salary will permanently erase from the team's toolkit.
So it leaves a really provocative question hanging over the league as free agency opens on Tuesday. We are watching teams willingly mortgage the year 2033 to win today, simply because the new rules make it mathematically impossible to keep an expensive roster together.
It is incredibly restrictive.
So based on all of this, will we see the complete extinction of the dynasty in the modern NBA? Like, is it now structurally impossible to dominate for a decade?
With these aprons acting as spike strips, if a team pulls off a 10-year dynasty now, it will be the greatest front office achievement in the history of the sport.
It truly will be. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Keep your eyes on those aprons as the free agency chaos unfolds this week, and we will catch you on the next one.